Dan Anderson, good to have you on, brother. How are you?
Thank you, man. I'm good. I'm doing well. Can't complain.
Yeah, well, first off, for those who don't have the honor and pleasure of knowing you like I do, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, I'm just a 30-year professional martial art instructor. So I've been doing martial arts for over 30 years. I run an academy in Tribeca, New York, Anderson's Martial Arts. And just been training martial arts my whole life and practicing and teaching it, spreading the love.
Yeah. Could you enlighten us a bit more about your martial arts background, how you got into it, and what's driven your passion?
Sure. So essentially, I was a young kid in Arkansas, out of all states in the United States you could grow up in. And obviously, I was picked on a lot and singled out. So I went to martial arts, obviously, first and foremost, to learn how to defend myself. And as I started training in martial arts, it grew into a bigger passion for discovering who I am and understanding my limitations. So from there, I wanted to share that, obviously. I wanted to give people the idea of self-empowerment and courage and discipline. The arts that I've been training in primarily for my entire life is the art of Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do concepts, or Jeet Kune Do. We also do Filipino martial arts, which is a weapons-based system, although they do have an empty hand striking system. We do Muay Thai boxing, which you probably commonly can see on different martial art events like the Ultimate Fighting Championship or Bellator or something like that. And then we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And obviously a lot of people know about the Gracie family and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. But we were early adopters in all of this stuff that's extremely popular now in mainstream media.
So with your background, you know, obviously as we've spoken about before, we're seeing a rise in civil unrest in some cities, and there's growing conflict, and people are starting to slowly flee from cities. What advice would you give someone perhaps listening today who has no background in martial arts but wants to understand basics that they can maybe practice at home and protect themselves and their loved ones, especially during an uncertain time period in history?
It's kind of a hard question to answer, and I'm going to tell you because obviously because you've trained with me and have trained martial arts, everything goes back to training. So when you're not training, it becomes, drastically harder to try to control circumstances. If a person's at home that, is a law-abiding citizen, I would say, hey, maybe take a firearms course, right? Try to go out and see if there's a local firearms or range near their house so they can learn how to maybe maneuver with the handgun. Maybe that person doesn't want to train with a firearm and they think that that's extreme. And so then I would say, hey, you should maybe look at a martial arts school, something local. And now we have everything online. So a lot of martial arts schools have put their academy curriculum online to start teaching. There's incredible resources. Obviously, YouTube has a lot of, I don't want to call them self-help videos, but videos that can teach you how to do things. But a lot of it is like, what we've been talking about, understanding that tactical mindset for your family. We talk about this a lot in my school, in my academy. I always say that you are your first responder. So, you have a lot of things that, you want to align in your life. Maybe that we call that your work life, your professional life, your family life, your mental life, your physical life. And then because what you're seeing now you should have some type of tactical plan for your family or even for yourself. And I think that you can find a lot of information online, but you definitely need a guide. I mean, you're pretty lucky because you read a lot, you study a lot, and you ask a lot of critical questions. So for your own personal stuff, you've taken pretty good care of your situation. But for the average person, I think there's a fair amount of resources that they have to try to tap into, and it's hard because you can definitely, not know where to go unless you have a guide. So it's a hard question. It's a real hard question to answer.
Well, during these times, I think that we've noticed that there's been an upsell of camping activities and people wanting to understand a bit more about how to be a bit more self-sufficient. In my opinion, I think that humans now have a little bit of underlying insecurity in the fact that everything that we've relied on our whole entire lives is delivered to our doorstep. I was just talking to my dad the other day, and he was telling me that he used to, shoot squirrels and gut them, and his mom would make him squirrel stew. And he grew up in Illinois, camping and hiking, and hunting his own food in the summer and growing his own food in his yard. And I feel like now there's this mood of the times where people are going back towards, building raised beds. I've done that in my own yard, to camping and wanting to find ways to become a bit more self-sufficient. And it's simultaneously growing our internal confidence levels as we do this, because we feel like, okay, you're in the woods. How do you get water? Fresh water. What if you don't have iodine tablets? Like, okay, what if you don't have access to a pot with boiling water? Some people might call that like prepperish or whatnot, but it's almost like that old dictum. It's like, you'd rather have something and not need it than need something and not have it. Without going into the whole prepper thing, because there's kind of emotions around that, and there's viewpoints around that. How would you say for you and I both lived in New York for a long time, and now I'm back in Miami. How would you say for the regular person out there who wants to make sure that their family is secure and safe for any scenario, what are the basics that you would suggest for building, much like you're building a portfolio for the wealth for the future of your family? How do you build the portfolio, the basic portfolio for the safety of your family personally?
Sure. So obviously, if I live in a big city, something like New York, you and I have talked about, like, if there was something that happened, how would you get out of the city? And a raft would be a good thing, like a Zodiac, a blow up Zodiac, right? You can get out of the city. But I think the baseline is food and water, right? So you have to have food, some type of survival food. I would say 6 months to a year supply. I have a 2-year supply of food here at the house. There's a lot of great companies out there that do this freeze-dried food that can last shelf life 15, 30 years. So I would definitely get survival food, some type of survival food. It's just a safe bet, right? Like you said, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? So survival food being primary. Second, I would find 2 forms of how I could filtrate water. You could do it with just some basic bleach. There's a formula, a recipe on how you can do it just with some bleach. Now you can get a clean canteen filter. It's just like a filter. It's a couple $100 off Amazon. I forgot the name of it, but you can stick it in anything and it's good for 10,000 gallons of water. Of course, you could do iodine tablets. And if you didn't even want to do that, you could just get a jug of bleach. And there is a formula where a jug of bleach can make like 5 swimming pools of clean water. And it's just a simple formula. It's just math. It's online somewhere. I'm pretty sure you could Google, how do I make clean water with a jug of bleach? And it's going to pop right up. Then I would think about like two very important necessities, right? Fire and a weapon. Fire, you know, you can get a fire starter really cheap, again, on Amazon or one of these online companies or online stores where you could go and just find a fire starter. Now, fire's very important. Obviously, you know that because, you know, let's just play pretend. You might need to boil the water, right? You might need to cook your food. You might need to make a hot meal, or you might need fire just for shelter to stay warm. So fire is very important. And then the last one, like I was talking about, a weapon. Now, ideally, you know, a rifle or something, you know, with good stopping power. You could also hunt with this, right? Not only protection, you could hunt with it. So, but a weapon could also be a bow and arrow. It could be a knife. And I always think that you should have a knife just as something, so another form of utility. So those would be my top, you must have type of things, right? So some type of bug out food or food that you need, emergency survival food. Lots of great companies out there with long shelf lives. Some way to purify water, whether that be through a filter system or iodine tablets or a jug of bleach. Fire starter, some way to make fire multiple times over. And a weapon, whether that be a rifle, a staff, a machete, something that you can use to protect yourself or hunt with. And I would think that that would be the basic, and then you build everything around that core that you have.
And if you were, let's say, hypothetically, to give let's say it was your daughter and she had no training, and you felt like it's a little uncertain out there, and you wanted to teach her 2 to 3 techniques to allow her to feel more confident going out and walking the streets. It could be eye gouge and, you know, kick to the balls, or, you know, whatever it might be. What would be the 3 techniques that you would instill upon someone like, for say, your daughter?
Sure. Again, it's a very tricky question because any technique needs a lot of repetition and a lot of practice. You know that to be able to deliver it with confidence. I think when you're practicing, you gain coordination, and through coordination, you gain confidence because you can start to do it a lot better. Now, obviously, the eye gouge or a finger jab doesn't take necessarily a lot of practice. The accuracy, on the other hand, does. The delivery does. The ability to stand in front of somebody with confidence, that takes a lot of practice. A lot of people get butterflies when they first get into some type of altercation because they've never been there before. They've never experienced it. So you have a lot of emotions going through your body. Finger jab, on the other hand, like poking somebody in the eye, it is a low maintenance, high impact technique. So if you think about just maintaining the finger jab, you don't have to practice finger jabbing a bag 200 times, right? to keep it. But I think those things around it are very core. Kicking the groin, that's another great technique. You have to know how to kick, and then you have to know how to kick and still maintain balance. Huh?
Yeah. With precision and balance, yeah.
Precision and balance come into play, and then, you know, will the person be able to execute that with precision and balance? We don't know unless they practice it. But I think that those 2 that you pointed out are pretty good building blocks for the complete novice. And I mean, you can get pretty proficient in a day if you just watch a video of somebody who actually knows how to do it and explains it pretty well, and you kind of slowly start to practice it. I would imagine that you could get it in a day or 2. I don't know how successful you would be, but it's like again, I say, it's a it's a high impact technique, and it's extremely low maintenance to keep.
So I have to ask you, because you and I have spoken in the past about you've studied war in its different manifestations through time. Obviously, there's not just kinetic warfare, boots on the ground. There's cyber. There's, the world is it's a lot more complex than it was in the 1920s and 30s. When we've last had a global war or conflict. How do you see the evolution of warfare and conflict now and in the short to medium term future?
So I think a lot of it is going to be, it's like, I think a lot of it is going to be cyber warfare, right? So I think the next probably 10 years, you're going to see a lot of computer systems being hacked, and, just things malfunctioning, and internet services maybe possibly going down, and banking transfer systems, and anything else that you can think of, transportation systems. Definitely communication systems is a big key, right? I mean, if we experienced something like that maybe a month ago, right, where everyone's phones were down, and they kind of believed that it could have been like a cyber attack on the system. And
or text.
I text you right away, like, can you call or something? So it was like, I felt like, I think it is going to be a lot, something like that. Communication, cyber warfare is the next big frontier. Do I think someone will invade or something? I think that it's less likely. I think it's more civil warfare, possibly, where it could be like a civil war within the states, within the government. That's more likely than Russia invading us.
Yeah. One thing that I've thought about a lot lately, and I love to kind of put myself in the shoes of, the other party. And if I were a country or an aggressor to the United States, most countries know that you can't invade the U.S. I mean, let's take New York, for example. You have 28,000 cops on the ground. You have National Guard. You have the Army. You have so many layers of security. But how do you take down a country where beyond those security apparatuses, you have everyone that has a weapon? You sow division from within. So if I were an aggressor, that would mean building WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups or Twitter groups, or groups across social platforms and even on the dark web that are, let's say, pro one side and anti another side, and then get those groups to meet at the same place at the same time, maybe pay some people within each group to throw bottles or a Molotov cocktail or break windows. And then once one or two people or three people from each side start doing things like that, it starts escalating and escalating. And if you scale that up and you start doing that in cities all over the US and paying people here and there to fly here and start conflicts, then you can really start sowing the seeds for internal chaos and conflict to bring a state down from within. And that's currently been one of my bigger concerns going into this, because, when you see in these George Floyd riots, for example, you see people that are just breaking things and they don't even seem like they're protesting. And I'm not saying that hasn't happened, or, but you're seeing things that are pretty blatantly, they seem out of kind of, it almost seems orchestrated. I don't want to go down it to, I'm not a conspiracy person, but what are your thoughts on that? And, how that can manifest in, in our lives?
I think that's completely what's going on right now. I mean, I think, you know, there's total evidence of some type of tampering with different Facebook groups, and you know, you're seeing people put bricks in certain locations, and you're definitely seeing members of different I don't know, extreme groups, something like Antifa, something like some of these different radical groups out there with different agendas. And you see a complete divide in everything from state and federal to even to law enforcement and military. I think it's a very chaotic moment in the United States history. It's definitely scary for someone that just wants to live that life that they had before, go to work, provide for their family, enjoy their life. I think there's a, you know, definitely a racial divide more than ever. And it could be an intricate plan. We don't know. I mean, every day you're hearing something new and something different, and it's hard to kind of decipher all these little pieces as an individual, right? So some, you know, I'm lucky. I get to bounce some things off of you. I get to bounce some things off a couple of other buddies that are looking at it from, you know, just a different lens, and it kind of looks orchestrated in this crazy way. I mean, it's like, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, don't touch a surface, touch a surface. We're allowed to riot. You're allowed to riot with no mask. The virus won't spread. You know, these rioters have masks. These guys are not rioters. They're protesters. These protesters aren't burning down buildings. These people are burning down buildings. It's just complete chaos. And then on top of that, you got Facebook groups telling people to go from one place, and then they show up and there are a whole bunch of radical people from one side, and then it's complete anarchy. It definitely looks like that. And then, you know, you got governors and senators and different politicians that are allowing things to happen that they normally wouldn't allow to happen. And of course, you know, it's a touchy subject where they're talking about defund the police department and take away the police. And, you know, it's like I'm saying, it's a touchy subject. Everyone has a different opinion. Everyone has a different angle. Everyone has a different twist. Me personally, I think that if you know, when you're looking at some of these things, this chaos and this pandemonium, I would imagine that you need to reform police, because they're the first line of defense with a normal civilian like you and I. We're walking the streets. Are we scared to walk down the streets? You know, this guy just racially attacked an older woman. She's 68 years old today, and on 14th Street at 2 p.m., he threw her to the ground. He started kicking her and threw her on the fucking train tracks. I mean, like, 68-year-old woman,
Jesus.
does she need to be thrown on the train tracks?
Was she killed?
She was not killed. People picked her up and took her off the train tracks. It's all over the news. I mean, we have a lot of shootings in New York. You have a lot of shootings in Chicago. They're not being talked about. And I think it's because of something like defund the police. Now, do I believe that the police need police reform? 100%. But I know something that a lot of people don't know. I know it's hard to control a person. How hard is it to control a person? Now, I could be 6'5" and you could be 5'1", and if you didn't want to be controlled, it would be really hard for me to control you with no training, with no martial arts training. So I think the idea is just spiraling out of control from a state level to a federal level, and everyone has picked a side. And if you're not on my side, we can't be friends. But I think that, you know, you lost healthy conversation. And I think healthy conversation like what we're doing is it's incredibly important.
It's
right?
Cognitive dissonance. It's, you know, once people start believing in a certain perspective, it is very hard, if not impossible, to change their mind, even if you're given a lot of evidence. And even now, you know, I I like to watch, if I don't watch TV very much, but when I do, if I'm in a hotel, I'll watch 10 minutes of Fox and then 10 minutes of CNN and then 10 minutes of Al Jazeera, right?
Right.
Because you could kind of, it's important to not put blinders on to any perspective. Because if you see a CNN or an Al Jazeera or a Fox, you get arguments that are very well articulated and backed up on every side. So if
Yep.
you're fed that, they don't call it programming for a reason. It's programming. It's programming your mind. So I know in some schools, what they'll do is they'll have you in law school debate one side, and then or take one position, and then you'll have to debate the other side, right? Just so you can fully grasp both perspectives. And I think that we've really lost as a society the ability to really absorb both perspectives and not become emotionalized by information, not
Sure.
become emotionalized by communication. It's like the second that someone says that they're voting this way or that way, automatically the other person shuts off or shuts down. And I think that the worst thing that could happen is a continued movement toward division, because
I feel that way too.
historically, and we've talked about this, it's like the declines of great civilizations in the world. The last leg of that is just being overstretched and people living overabundantly, and then divisiveness, and then decay from within. And I guess we have to either follow that trend or try to do our best to heal those divisions and come together. I don't know what do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you're absolutely right when it comes to what you're seeing. And I think it's a hard thing for me because I have a martial arts community. I'm trying my very best to make an actionable change. So, we've donated to, for about 15 years, Dasha and I have been donating to a cause called Our Rescue. And essentially what it is it's about human trafficking and stopping human trafficking. So from a political angle, a lot of people don't know this yet. We're working with the city right now to be a registered voting spot. So you can go into the school and actually fill out a form to where you're registered to vote. So actionable change is how it starts at a community level, and then at a community level, it goes outward, right? So from a community level, you start to go to a statewide level. And a statewide level, you're hitting a region. And then from the region, then you can do a national thing. Now, from someone small like us, I mean, we have a couple thousand people, but it's something that we can do. Voting is very crucial, right? A lot of people talk about it now, but not so much. Some people do. They think that's not really changed. They're going after things that I think you need to debate out. Like, let's talk about police reform. That needs to be debated completely by a lot of different parties. And they need to come up with real actionable changes in the police reform. But when you think about like someone like you or I, how can we hit it on a grassroots level? Well, we did the voting thing. We're actually we've been doing the our rescue movement for almost 15 years now. We've been doing things like that and just trying to empower our community. Will that work? I think it could. I think, one light in a dark tunnel is better than no light in a dark tunnel, right? So it's hard to say positive during these times for everybody. And I think that goes back to as a martial artist, we can pinpoint these things. So mental health. right? Let's talk about mental health for 1 second, right? As a martial artist, can you be pessimistic going into a sparring match? Probably not. You probably can you be pessimistic going into a fight? No, I wouldn't think so. I think that you would be you would the outcome would be there. So I think there's a couple of things that you can control when you wake up. What you eat and what you consume, right? So if I eat like crap, I'm going to feel like crap. If I watch one news and just get one narration, it's compelling to where I can quickly shift my viewpoint. That's why I think it's great that you're listening to multiple things. A smart person's going to listen to multiple things and kind of pick and choose. Well, for me, I watch the news only one day a week because I don't want to be consumed with
the drama of the day.
The drama of the day. I mean, it's
Trump's latest tweet.
Something like that, right? It's always going to find you. Like, problems always find you without you finding them. You wake up, you Instagram, you check one of your social media things, it's some bad news. Or it's someone with a completely skewed viewpoint. And then you're just like, wow. And I think it's because you need to wake up and control what you consume from a media standpoint. So a good thing I like to do is just listen to a TED Talk. Why? Because they're always positive. They're always something that you can learn. So I wake up, I listen to a TED Talk. It'll already start to frame my day. Then I'll think like this, all right, I don't want to eat nothing bad. What am I going to have today? And then what I need to do, I need to train my body to get some endorphins out, right? Get that sweat going. It clears your mind. And then from there, I can start thinking about how I can try to add some value to this world that we live in. And then I just try to add some value. Of course, there's stress during the day between family and work and things like that. But I really try to do the mind-body connection every single day. And I'm very lucky that my wife lives that idea too. And sometimes if I'm weak, she pushes that idea extremely hard on me. Like, hey, you need to get on the treadmill. You need to sweat. You need to get down there. And she's like, I left the stuff on the bar. You need a deadlifter. You need to do these inverted rows. And we have a row machine over here. You need to row for 20 minutes because she understands the importance of this. But a lot of people don't. And they don't understand how to clear their mind, right? They don't understand how to eat correctly. And they don't understand the benefit of taking care of their body. And they don't live that mind-body connection. And then obviously if you have that mind-body connection, there's that spirituality. I'm going to call spirituality like, how like people love, like, I love the Miami Dolphins. That's like spirit, right? That's team spirit, right? You find people that, they're not a part of a team. They don't have team spirit. So how do we find spirit within ourselves? And I think that that's a major thing. And if you're losing these things, what do you think you're digesting and consuming in the course of a day? You wake up, you're looking at bad news, bad media. You're eating like shit because you're depressed because you can't work or you can't talk to your friends, or the social distancing things have just put like a big damper on your social life or your outdoor life, right? And then you can't work out because gyms are closed, right? Martial art gyms are closed. Weightlifting things are closed. You can't find weightlifting equipment online. I mean, if you go to any of these major outlet retailers that used to sell all this gym equipment, you can't find it. It's gone. So now you took all that away from everybody and you expect them to be in good spirits and go along with the system and go along with the program.
And now they don't have their jobs and they're angry. You can't feed their kids. Rent's been going up. They're, thinking about evicting them.
All of that.
Income inequality is at the highest level ever.
Unemployment. People are filing for unemployment. They can't get unemployment. Doesn't it end this week? I think it ends today or tomorrow.
Yeah, the unemployment checks. What is the world going to look like when all these people aren't getting unemployment checks anymore?
I think it gets chaotic. I think when you think of something like, when does a person like you or I just go crazy and just go completely think about only ourselves and survival.
When you're at the survival state of consciousness, when there's nothing left.
Well, no, when you can't feed your family. So
Yeah,
like,
that's
let's
it's
say
what
you
I
have
mean.
like,
You can't
let's say
feed
you
your
have 5
family. There's
kids
nothing
there.
left.
You have 5 kids, you're not getting unemployment, you're not getting government aid. What are you going to do?
Nobody's helping you. Nobody's helping you.
You're going to go out there and steal it. And then from stealing it, an altercation can happen, and then it gets,
And
it
then,
just starts to spiral.
have you heard in LA they have this Eat the Rich campaign?
No, I have not.
They've been breaking into all these car dealerships and like these.
Oh, I did see this.
And then they spray paint "Eat the Rich" all over the place. I was in LA last week and talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying that her building's right in kind of that main area and down in LA, and she said that it was just they were breaking into the Gucci store, throwing Molotov cocktails in there, and just spray painting "Eat the Rich" everywhere. I mean, I think that's kind of remember the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia, where something like half the population was killed for, some of them just for wearing glasses. It was kind of like the going after the aristocrats.
Killed all the elders, all the knowledge. That's why when you go to Cambodia, we were there a couple of years ago, you're not getting traditional food anymore. They're finding the recipes from long lost recipes. It's a sad thing. But I think that right now we're in a scary position, and I kind of agree that it could be one of the biggest divides of our lifetime if leadership doesn't come in. And you need strong leadership, obviously from a national level all the way down to a state level and to a local level. And there has to be unified, there just has to be unification with the messaging. Look, I've been saying about police because do I think there are cops out there that have done bad things to people, racist cops? 100% there are, right? You know that. Are there racist politicians? You know that. Of course there are, right? Are there racist car dealerships? Probably. Are there racist any title that you can put there? Yes. But we should look at the good of people, right? And we should think, look, a police officer's job is
to protect and serve.
But it's the most scariest job in the world. Do you and I want to go out there and police people? Probably not. And I have legitimate experience to be able to provide something. So when we talk about law enforcement, we talk about defunding the police department. I think that the real message should be reform. Police reform. I mean, cops need to train martial arts. If cops trained in martial, let's just hypothetically said all cops were like a blue belt or a purple belt level, I could see them controlling people a lot better and a lot safe in a safe manner. Now, cops that don't know martial arts and they just carry a gun and they're going in there, they don't have any psychological training,
It's like if you give someone a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But it's also like, let's say you and I were cops and we saw our friends die by some gang violence. They drove by a cop car and just killed them all. That would stay with us for how long? How long would we be psychologically damaged if we saw that, if we were cops? Yeah. For a while, probably. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be, a psychiatrist on staff, possibly. There needs to be mental training for these cops, a decompression of these cops. There needs to be a lot of things. It's reform. I think that when you take away money and cops are scared to do their job, you're going to see chaos on a gigantic level.
Somebody told me yesterday that, and I do not know if this is true, but that there are some places in New York where people are out of control and looting, and the cops aren't doing anything at this point.
No, it's true. Look, John, I say my honest opinion about things. I mean, I think that the world in a really scary place right now. There's video footage. I'll tag you in the video where two police officers come and they're trying to arrest some guy, and the kids are playing in the water fountain, and then they're trying to arrest this guy for, I don't know, he's a homeless guy or something, and he did something. I don't know what he did. But the kids are just completely disrespecting police. They're picking up buckets of water and dumping them on the cop's head, dumping buckets of water on their head. And of course, they don't want to start something and do something because why? They're fearful of their own job. So they just stop arresting the guy and just give up, physically just give up, and then say, you know what, let's just leave. So now they're trying to leave, and of course all the kids are like, oh, they're not going to do nothing to us. So they just go and dump water all over him, just humiliate them. Now, I don't know if the messaging is correct there. I think there's no respect whatsoever anymore. And when there's no respect, guess what happens? You know, ghouls come out to play at night. And as ghouls come out to play at night.
And they get away with it a couple of times.
A couple of times. They're getting away with it. They are definitely looting.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is once they start getting away with it, a little here, a little there, you know, what's going to happen to all these people? For example, they just released a bunch of people from jail for because of COVID, and then they don't have jobs. And then you have all this unemployment coming in, all these unemployment checks stop coming in. People can't feed their families. What's next? It's just
released a guy that raped a woman, and he went right back to raping women. It's very documented. You can look it up. I mean, it's in the Daily News, the Post, the Times, everything. There was two sex offenders released because of COVID, and they went on like a spree. One of them raped like 4 women or 3 women in like a week. Like it's completely out of control in my mind.
Do you think that our current leadership, and I don't want to get into names or anything like that or make this political, but that this can in a way be a strategy to strengthen authoritarian leaders and authoritarian leadership, to be able to say, you see, you know, that's why you need me to come in here and be the strong man and to take over control, because without it, in these democratic states, you have lawlessness because they're weak leaders. Now you need a strong leader.
I think
and it's kind of a smart strategy, no? You sow civil discourse. Do you remember the inauguration speech where he was saying lawlessness in the streets, and you know, everybody was like, that was weird. It's like, it sounds like we live in, you know, Iraq in the middle of Fallujah or something, early 2000s. It's like, but it's now we're kind of, it was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
I mean, I think it's playing out that way. It looks that way, right? I mean, if you just look from the outside looking in, it looks that way. It looks like there's weak leadership, and someone who obviously has power is going to position themselves to say this, exactly what you said. Look at this. This is why you need me. You're not safe anymore. And listen, look at the crime wave in New York, just New York. I mean, and then look at, you know, Chicago, look at other states. It's pretty scary. Look what's going on in Seattle with that zone that they're trying to, you know, take over that part, and they're sending in federal agents and things like that. These things make for a civil war. I mean, it's brewing. It's pretty hot. The water's really hot right now. I mean, someone's going to get burned, and it's going to be the normal people that are going to get burned, and it's a scary thing.
And from a financial aspect, I keep thinking about this recent quantitative easing and this money printing. All this money is going into the hands of the wealthiest, and the poorest, the people that need it the most, it's not getting into their hands.
Right.
And that's only going to exacerbate these issues of income inequality and divisiveness. And when you combine all these factors together, it's like what you said. If you put a frog into boiling water, it will jump out. But if you just slowly start heating up that water, it will boil to death. And the question is, what is the current temperature of the water that we're swimming in?
It's like 98 degrees Fahrenheit right now. It's not a good, it's not a good look. I mean, that's just my opinion, right? Like everyone has opinion on what they're seeing, but you know, I still go into the city every couple of days. There are people in the parks. It kind of looks normal, but there are a lot of, you know, misfits roaming the streets more than I could remember in the past.
And just a heads up, the podcast is called Futurist Misfits.
No way. Is it really?
Yes, it is.
Oh God. So we're seeing that in the streets in New York a lot more now.
But Futurist Misfits is intended to be people who are looking for out-of-the-box ways to create systems and communities for the future that are outside of the box and outside of tradition. So it's my belief, like we've spoken of in the past, that we're in this fourth turning, as Strauss and Howe mentioned in their book, The Fourth Turning or Generations, where basically what happens in our time is that we have someone come to destroy or dismantle the old systems that are not working and really just take down everything. It's almost like burning the forest to make way for the seedlings for spring, which will come in about 6 years from now. But that the purpose of kind of some of the leadership that we have now is to usher in the destruction of the old system to make way for the new system. So the purpose of this podcast is to bring people on who are thinking about where we are now and where we're going, and to create and discuss systems and communities that will help facilitate, a prosperous future.
Sure. I think it's an amazing thing. From my perspective, I will be the system to teach you how to defend and protect your family. And that's what I will do. I do that very well. That's my whole life profession. So I'm pretty sure that everyone will be safe if they listen to the podcast, and I'll give you guys some updates, and John can steer you, and we'll be in it together. It's going to take a strong team to protect everybody and keep everyone safe, and just to preserve that family life. The quality of family life is definitely being threatened at this moment.
Well, I would imagine. I have to ask, what is a belief that you have that you feel pretty passionate about that maybe others around you might find controversial or out of the box?
Okay, so being a prepper, I think a lot. I mean, honestly, I never considered myself a prepper. And then I remember that you told me, man, it just means prepared, and you're prepared. And I was like, wow, I guess it was like, I'm a prepper, because when you watch those things on television, the doomsday preppers, you're kind of like, wow, that guy is so deep left field. Yeah, you're like, he's so deep left field. Where's he at? He's in outer space, like.
Yeah, they're living in like a little, it's insane.
Yeah.
I think that we need kind of the modern prepper is someone who's engaged in society, doesn't have to think about anything because they spent maybe a day or a week, figuring out what their backup plans are. And then they don't have to think about it anymore because they know, oh, okay, if then that. But what people don't realize is they attach themselves to names like preppers or whatnot, but they don't just realize it's just an algorithm. It's just a program. If
that's right. You're right.
happens, then that happens. And most people, you ask them, okay, so what happens if the power goes out and it doesn't come back on?
Solar, it's
What?
solar. Got
What?
solar over here. So
Wait,
I'm a
what?
modern day prepper. That's what I am. I'm a modern day prepper. I think that that's where maybe there's some controversy where people are like, look at Dan, he's crazy. Look at John, he's crazy. They're thinking about all this crazy deep left field stuff, but it's not. It's actually what's relevant right now. I mean, you saw supply chain was limited at the very beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
People couldn't get groceries, people couldn't get things. I had things. I was fine. I didn't even have to go to the store. I had a freezer full of food, a deep freezer. We have a backup generator. We have all these things. Like, I've got water, water stored. I got a lot of, I prepared just because I thought about the same thing that you're thinking about. How do I protect my family? Not, I'm going to go dig a hole in a well down deep. And, I mean, that's, to me, it's extreme, but I mean, to someone else, maybe that's their only resource to having water. So it's all subjective in the eye of the prepper, right? So for me, I think, when I'm buying bow and arrows and, like storing meat and getting these bug out food and buying these type of things, I think a lot of people look at me, especially we live in New York City, like, what is this guy doing? He's crazy. Like, but I think now in hindsight, I've got
Insurance.
insurance, world insurance, life insurance. This is the form of life insurance, family insurance, right?
It's more
But
reliable insurance, actually.
yeah, in hindsight, you know how many phone calls I've gotten about like, hey, where did you get that bug out food? Hey, what can I get can you make a list for me? Hey, what about this? What about that? What about, hey, what backup generator are you using? What solar are you using? What's this? What's that? I get a lot of those texts in the course of a day now because I think it happened so quickly. It happened within like 2 or 3 months. Not so much now, but you don't know where it's heading still. So I would, if I'm a listener right now, I would bet on having some stuff than not having some stuff.
Yeah, the future is uncertain, but
Completely.
change is inevitable at this point, and it's happening. It's happening slowly. There was a funny article, a funny and serious article, almost not funny, in the Onion. The Onion, the New Yorker magazine, and it was like, I remember the day that World War II happened. All of a sudden, Nazis showed up at the door out of nowhere, and it was such a surprise. But it's supposed to be a satire, so it's like, basically what they're saying is that we all knew that this was happening, but it was just like a very slow process. And I'm not comparing anyone to Hitler or anything like that. I'm not going down that road, so I don't want to get responses about that. But it's more about in trading, they have a term. It's like the trend is your friend, right? You don't want to be a bear in a bull market or a bull in a bear market. And we know that the trend is for populism, nationalism, authoritarianism. We're seeing the weaknesses in democracy right now, because in these countries that are a bit more authoritarian, they're able to shut down quickly. The people did what they were told. They locked down, and now look where they are. In our democracy, people are all saying, I don't have to wear a mask, and yeah, my body, my rights, and all this stuff. And I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but we're seeing already the weaknesses, the cracks in our democracy when it comes to things like that. Whereas in the beginning of our democracy, I think that we would have respected the authorities' decisions on lockdowns and whatnot. But we've just entered into this phase in our democracy where we've almost taken it for granted to a degree at which we're willing to put each other's lives, health, safety at risk for the sake of, I don't know, egoic aggrandizement, perhaps.
I completely agree. I mean, look, we speak the same language. We are on a same type of wave frequency when it comes to all of this. It's scary times. The ship is a slow-moving ship. The United States is a slow-moving ship. And, for the people that are looking at it, we're heading towards this big iceberg, right? And nobody wants to move the ship. Everyone sees the iceberg, but everyone's like, we're not going to hit it. We're just going to graze it a little bit.
Well, they also say you're being negative.
Yeah.
You're being negative. It's like if you're on the Titanic and you're looking at the iceberg, you're like, we got an iceberg right there. It's like, oh, stop being negative. We're
gonna miss that iceberg.
you're so you need to get on like good vibes, man. Good vibes.
Why are you counting all these life rafts for? We got plenty of life rafts to get out of here, like, yeah, it's so I feel the same way. I feel like we're heading towards that iceberg. You can see it. It's a scary thing, and I think that it's going to take sound leadership to reunify some type of message, or we're heading right at that iceberg, and it's going to rip the boat right in half, and a lot of people are going to be in the cold water. And the guys that have the life rafts and life jackets and foods and flares and a compass to know where they're at are definitely going to be in a different boat. And I hope that your listeners are one of those people that kind of hedge the difference and say, you know what, I need some backup food. You know what, I need a plan to get out of my metropolitan city. You know what, I think it would be smart to start training martial arts. You know what, I need to start eating clean. You know what, I need to start taking care of my body. Hey, what can I do on a local level that's going to make some actionable change? And then they start to apply themselves for something good, some type of positive change that can save the country. I mean, one person can make a big amount of change. I mean, one person can do a lot more than they think. So hopefully your listeners and the people hear the messaging and what we're saying, instead of thinking that we're being negative or apocalyptic, right? Like thinking just in the doom. And I'm a pretty optimistic person. I'm optimistically curious on things, and that's why I look at so many things and study so many things, because I'm curious, right? I have this curiosity to learn. But I'm also very optimistic that you can change any outcome for the better if you inspire people to do that. So that's what I've been trying to do. I think the podcast is definitely doing that, or you can expand your messaging, your reach to further people, and give people that inspiration and that hope that they desperately need during these times.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sifu Dan Anderson. And where can we learn more about what you do, and can you plug a little bit about what
Sure.
About your school and your online academy?
So we have the online academy, which is universityofmartialarts.com. We have some of the best fighters, coaches, masters there. I have a program there, of course. But what I did is I tried to make it a repository for martial arts learning on all levels. The idea of remote learning was always a big thing in my mind for a very long time, even before all of COVID and things started happening. And now it's people are definitely remote learning more. You can find me if we ever get back to normality. You can find me in New York City at Anderson's Martial Arts in Tribeca. And, I'm on all those social media things. Sometimes I am active, and sometimes I'm definitely not active. I've been making a very good rule about at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I try to throw my phone in the couch and just walk away from it until the next day. So I try not to take the phone in the bedroom anymore. I try not to wake up and look at the phone anymore. So I may be responsive to you. I may not be responsive to you, only because it's just for my own personal sanity.
Yeah, we all need that right now in our lives.
Definitely. John, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Definitely. Ciao.